What is going on with Greenland? Why does Trump care? Well, I can tell you, Canada says they need to protect the Arctic. Putin says it's his next front. And China and Russia want to challenge the Arctic Order, so there's probably more to the story. Here's Greenland right here, and there's the Arctic Ocean. For a long time, the Arctic Ocean has been considered the fourth wall because it's totally inaccessible. But that's changing because now there's what's called a transpolar sea route. It's an ice-free shipping route that's opening up by mid-century, meaning that regular ships are going to be able to transverse this in certain parts of the year and then later probably during the whole year. And that is a seriously important shipping route. I mean, it's right between Asia, Russia, North America, Europe. This is going to make Greenland as important as, for example, the Suez Canal is to Egypt and the Middle East. Maybe the most important future trade route on the planet. But there is a lot more to the story. The Kola Peninsula has become the crux of Russia's military. This is the Kola Peninsula right here. Here's Greenland, Europe down here, North America over here. And here's an image of the Kola Peninsula from satellites. The Kola Peninsula has become what Putin is calling his ice curtain. There's a bunch of military hardware here. Here's another image showing some of it. And China is positioning itself as a near Arctic state. They're calling this new transpolar sea route the Ice Silk Road. And they're investing heavily in Arctic affairs. Here is a delegation. Mining, science, which is going to come back. Science can mean a lot of things. And political engagement. And you can't tell this story without highlighting America's Beatific Space Base. That's how you say that word. Here's an image of our important radar dome. U.S. Space Command highlights the strategic importance of Beatific Space Base because it exists in a unique position at the top of the world where you can monitor missiles that might come from a place like North Korea or be outbound from the United States. It is key to the Ballistic Missile Early Warning System, basically key to protecting America. But as the space race intensifies, which it absolutely is, it has become essential for satellite control, performing basically a toll sort of monitoring element for low Earth orbit. Beatific Space Base is considered to be the most important military installation outside of the United States. And to a lesser extent, Greenland's rare earths are important because currently China has basically a monopoly on that market. And of course, they use their leverage. They have done things like targeted our defense sectors and semiconductor manufacturing. But the thing is, the United States signed a deal with the Kingdom of Denmark in 1951 that basically gave us everything we want with respect to Greenland. We already have U.S. Space Command at Beatific Space Base, and if we want to, we can pursue rare earth mining in Greenland. So it seems like Trump already has a lot of what he wants, does he? Well, there's an important ripple to this story, which is that in 2009, Greenland became self-governing in many important ways. In the deal they made with Denmark to self-govern, they now have control over international affairs. And it's important to note that there's a lot of poverty in Greenland. They are not a wealthy nation. And when you don't have a lot of money, you need external support, which means that other people can come in and offer you things like loan guarantees. This Chinese-built airport became a big issue because it would put a lot of Chinese technology right near our most important military installation outside the United States. And moreover, when Greenland manages its own international affairs, this tiny population of 50,000 people who don't have a lot of money become the most important player in the newly most strategically important spot on the planet that sits right between Asia, Russia, and North America. That provides a lot of instability. And it means that the rules aren't clear about what can happen in that area. And what's happened, for example, is China has built an ice-breaking ship called Xuelong 2. Here is Xuelong 2 going through the ice in the Arctic. And it's known that China has a remote sensing platform for the Arctic environment. So you've got Xuelong 2 cruising around the Arctic, building detailed maps of things like the seafloor features where, for example, we might have things that relate to submarines. And Russia has been a lot more straightforward and aggressive about it. They've deployed nuclear forces in the Arctic, the Kinzhal missile. This is a hypersonic weapon, meaning that it's so fast that it's actually hard for us to monitor. So what's the solution? What's our approach? Well, actually, there is some precedent here. First of all, it's important to note that while a lot of people in the media and on the left say basically that Trump is just on some crazy mission, the US has been knowing about the strategic importance of Greenland for a really long time. Since 1868, when Seward pointed it out. William Seward was the Secretary of State that bought Alaska in what at the time was called Seward's Folly. I don't think people would consider that a mistake now. So how might we do this? Well, we have a model called the Compact of Free Association, and we use that with relationships with territories like Micronesia and the Marshall Islands. And what it does is give the territory that comes into the compact access to a lot of US programs like FEMA, National Weather Service, Postal Service, FAA, and banking. And the citizens of those territories can live and work in the United States, and US citizens can live and work there. And importantly, it allows the United States to operate armed forces in the area. So in 2009, as I mentioned, Greenland officially became a self-governing territory, and they have the right to secede. The reason they don't secede right now is that they get Danish subsidies of about $600 million a year. And just to point out, $600 million is how much a retired NBA player spent on building out a beverage distribution park in Montgomery, Alabama. Just to point out that $600 million a year is a rounding error for the United States government. So there is no doubt that we could inject a lot of capital into Greenland, and honestly, just being real about it, make these people's lives a lot better. And in exchange, we would get stability and security in the Arctic. Do you think it's worth it?